I have a theory about NHL officiating, and it's not that like it's biased against one team or another or anything like that. I think that's mostly nonsense. Even though Leafs fans will insist that NHL player safety is biased against them, which actually they have a lot of receipts for, but I still don't believe for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it is, but who knows? Anyway, I think teams that play like quote unquote big boy hockey intrinsically get away with more stuff. And there's no way to really track it with the data that we currently have because we only look at infractions for and against, and we don't actually have any metrics for missed infractions and where the line should be. Like it's a very nebulous thing. But whenever we talk about things like we know things are called far more liberally, we'll say, in the playoffs. Things are allowed, you're allowed to get away with more. But refs will turn around and say, well, there's more penalties called in the playoffs, and players have no, there's more on the line, so they play cleaner. So we're actually calling it more tightly. And you're like, that doesn't pass any smell test whatsoever of anybody who's ever watched a playoff game. Like you were definitely allowed to cheat more in the playoffs. And I think teams that play that, like if you're a very big team, a physically aggressive team, a forechecking team, you get away with more. It doesn't necessarily mean that your penalties for and against are going to be in your favor, but there are fewer penalties called in the game compared to the number of infractions. And I think that's something that the Bruins knew a lot when they were at their peak. They knew that they could basically do whatever they wanted, and the refs would only call so much. Because once you get too many, the refs aren't going to call 25 penalties on you in a game. You can push through that and continue moving on. It's like the Donald Trump style of politics, but in hockey, right? Just break all the rules, and sometimes it'll come back against you, but you've broken so many that you're going to win, right? And I'm not saying that the Jets are a dirty team, but because they play that big style hockey, I think there are games like this where even if the flow of play was generally even and probably both teams committed around the same number of infractions, the other team is the one that gets called more often because in order to knock down like the bigger player, you clearly had to have gone over the line or cheated or something. So there's more likely going to be a call. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now that you're kind of talking about it, I kind of agree with you. Like that's kind of how refs maybe like not really consciously call, but like it's just kind of like flow of the game and how like what teams play the a team's playing style or their I think it does affect the penalty call, just like the number of penalties called in a game. I think yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And a team like Montreal, you kind of see all of their infractions, and they're a lot more, visible to to me watching on TV, and probably to the refs. While the Jets, while I think I didn't see many like blatant penalties. There were a couple of things that I noticed that definitely could have been called. If it wasn't like you said, like the Jets that play that big boy hockey, and not just the Jets, but like other teams. So that yeah, I think there's definitely some truth to that. I like to see maybe some more. It definitely showed a little bit tonight. You could say in this game because, like I said, just Montreal plays a certain way. Their penalties looked very blatant, very obvious, while the Jets they don't look as obvious, but they're there and could be called, but they seemingly get missed for whatever reason.